A TomTom satellite navigation unit drizzled in honey. The Adventure Bike Shop.
Rubbish adverts.
Great at adventure.
Hello, and it's Tom here doing my first bike review for Adventure Bike TV. Now, we are today looking at the BMW F850 GS Adventure. Now, it is pouring with rain, similar to how Sam's review of the 1250 Adventure was last week, because we're doing them on the same day, and it's horrible weather. So I'm very quickly going to just talk to you about some of the features of this bike that I think really set it apart compared to the standard F850. In terms of spec, there isn't actually a huge amount of difference when you come to the engine. You're still getting 95 brake horsepower, but you're just getting kind of all the extras thrown in. The bigger tank, the protection here. I was a bit surprised there isn't actually a belly pan as standard, but you can buy one as an extra. You're also getting things like your hand guards up here. You've got a adjusting screen up here, which is really nice and easy to do on the move. And you're basically getting the highest spec of everything. Now, some other features I want to kind of point out about this: you can change the seat heights quite dramatically on this, which for me is great because I can bring a really nice low seat. And I always struggle, like many short fat people do, with getting on big tall bikes. But this is going to be, I'm really excited to ride it because I think my feet will be able to touch the ground quite nicely. When you get up to the tech up the top, this is where you get a huge amount of things. You get things like the cruise control, you get huge amounts of information, but you get ride mode. So you do get an enduro mode, an off-road mode, a rain mode, and your standard touring mode. So you're actually getting quite a lot of different modes on this that you would get over the standard F850 as well. Let me move this bike round for you. This bike is actually as wide as the GS Adventure. So if I put this round here so that we can have a look at some of the stylings on this bike. Now, have a look at this. This front almost looks stretched out. It is incredibly wide. And actually, when you start looking at the side, you actually realise this bike is kind of the same width as the GS Adventure. But of course, it doesn't have the boxer engine, so you don't have the big boxers sticking out the side. So although it's wide at the top, not at the bottom as well. So it's still going to feel like a much lighter bike. Overall though, I think it's a great looking bike, and well, I'm really excited to get out on the road. Okay, so I think the base price for this bike is around the 12 grand, but once you put all the kind of bits on it, like the SOS and all the kind of extras, that it's getting on for kind of 15 grand, which is a fair price to pay for a bike, but it's nice. I am enjoying it. I love this gear, these gears. So you don't actually have to you don't have to pull in the clutch if you don't want to. You can just use the gears with your feet. So look now, if you look here, so you'll see the gears changing because I'm changing them with my feet. But if you see, my hand isn't moving at all, isn't pulling in the clutch. So that's really great because you get the mix there of using a clutch when you want to without it being like a fully automatic thing like the Africa Twin DZT. I think this is kind of the perfect compromise, to be honest. I love it. It's so well balanced. It really is. I mean most bikes these days are very well balanced. You take your hands off the handlebars, but this just feels so planted. Take your hands off the handlebars, and yeah, it's just there. It's absolutely, I love it. I genuinely love it, and I am surprised that I love it. I was not expecting to love it, but I really genuinely like this bike. The screen on this is absolutely fantastic, and I don't think this is the screen you get as a standard screen on the standard F850. This is kind of the screen they give you on the Adventure, which is the same screen on the 1250, and it's a really great TFT screen. Everything's just really clear on it, and yeah, I mean, it's well laid out. You can get to everything you need to. It's a great piece of kit. I didn't expect to like it. It's big, it's wide, but the first thing I noticed when I sat on it was I could touch the floor. And that actually is quite a big thing for me. I am short, I am fat, I'm not in denial, I know these things. And I can touch the floor quite happily, and that straight away gives you a little confidence, because you have that confidence where it doesn't feel quite as tippy or anything like that. I like that. For me, that's a great thing.
Is it not heavy though, top heavy with the...
You know what? Normally the handlebars are by far the widest point of a bike, apart from panniers, if you're travelling with panniers. On this bike, you look directly down, and the bike's the side of the bike's level with the handlebars, and that for me is just a bit crazy. The question I have, if I'm honest, is I'm not sure there is a need for tanks that big anymore. I understand that if you're doing huge amounts of travel and stuff like that, that, you know, a long tank range is good, but bearing in mind that if you look at the standard bike, still has a pretty good tank on it, and you bear in mind that they're all now far more efficient than the bikes used to be, I'm not sure that you really need one travelling. Okay, if you're going to be doing something like you did through Sudan, where there really are very few fuel stops, then yeah, I think go ahead. But I think for 99.9% of people who are travelling, even if you're travelling kind of North Africa or something like that, you're never going to be so far from fuel that you need a tank that big anymore. And I think that's my biggest issue with your bike and my bike that we've been riding. They don't need to have those, I don't think. Now, on the flip side, I would still buy the F850 Adventure over the Standard.
Yeah. Is that because of looks? Or?
It's not. Mostly because I think it looks so much better. I think it looks. I love the look of that bike.
Such a shallow bastard.
I am shallow. It's all about looks for me. Okay, so back from a long wet ride on the BMW F850 GS Adventure. What did I think? I was massively surprised. I've not done much riding of the BMW kind of 800 range. I've done a fair bit. Actually, I spent 2 weeks in Africa riding the GS 1200 at the time, and I was never a big fan of the boxer engine. The whole bike felt big. I didn't like the way that, you know, when you accelerate, it pulls slightly to one side, and for me, it's just too big. And I've always preferred the kind of 800 range of motorcycles, and I had the Triumph Tiger 800, which I loved. It had problems that I think this bike has solved. You get good engine braking because it's not a triple. The Triumph Tiger will always have engine braking issues because of that triple engine. Its engine braking is almost non-existent. However, with this bike, you're getting that engine braking. It's not as smooth, and I like that. It's not terribly smooth, but it has such a personality. I really feel like this bike has a personality, and it speaks to you as you ride in terms of the feel of the engine. You can really feel what it's doing, what it wants to do. I love the way you can change gears without using the clutch. I think that is the perfect mix between the kind of Honda Africa Twin DCT, where you don't have a clutch or anything, and, you know, a fully manual bike. I think this is the right kind of mix, being able to change gear without pulling the clutch, but still having it there for clutch control. But it's big. I mean, it's really big. Every time I'm riding, I forget, and I sit there and I think how great this bike is, and it's lovely, and I'm really enjoying riding it. And then I look down and see how wide it is, and it's so wide. However, I think it speaks volumes that I forget how wide it is when I'm not looking down. It's a massive surprise for me. And there are quite a few bikes in this kind of 800 range. And certainly I haven't tried this off-road, and I'm not sure, being as wide as it is, that I'd want to take it, do huge amounts of off-road. Certainly not kind of hard off-road. I'd happily do, you know, fire trails and things like that. No problem at all. But I think it's the most comfortable seating position of any 800 on the market at the moment. It does need some handlebar risers for when you stand up, but I think if I was going to do a trip that was I don't know, so 70% road and some long road distances, this is the 800 I would buy, which is a surprise for me and probably for most of you. So would I have one in my garage? Yes, please. I'll take this one.
A Helinox chair with crisp, fresh iceberg lettuce. The Adventure Bike Shop.
Rubbish adverts.
Great at adventure.